Good morning, and welcome to the SEED Virtual STEM Expo, STEM Storytime. If you've not already done so, please visit usca.edu/SEED to access all of the other resources, presentations, exhibits, and trivia for the Virtual STEM Expo. Today, thanks to our friends at Storytime from Space, we will be watching a recording of astronaut Kate Rubins reading the book Rosie, Revere, Engineer, all the way from the International Space Station. Followed up with our live special guest engineers, Arizona Morgan Harris and Diana Berry. Now let's watch our story.
Welcome to Storytime from Space, a project of the Global Space Education Foundation. To learn how you can support this exciting project, please visit storytimefromspace.com.
Hello, and welcome to the International Space Station. I'm astronaut Kate Rubins, and today we're going to read a book about Rosie, Revere, Engineer, by Andrea Beatty and illustrated by David Roberts. This is the story of Rosie Revere, who dreamed of becoming a great engineer. In Lila Greer's classroom at Blue River Creek, young Rosie sat shyly, not daring to speak. But when no one saw her, she peeked in the trash for treasures to add to her engineer's stash. And late at night, Rosie rolled up her sleeves and built in her hideaway under the eaves. Alone in her attic, the moon high above, dear Rosie made gadgets and gizmos she loved. And when she grew sleepy, she hid her machines far under the bed where they'd never be seen. When Rosie was young, she had not been so shy. She worked with her hair swooping over one eye and made fine inventions for uncles and aunts, a hot dog dispenser and helium pants. The uncle she loved most was zookeeper Fred. She made him a hat to keep snakes off his head, from parts of a fan and some cheddar cheese spray, which everyone knows keeps the pythons away. And when it was finished, young Rosie was proud. But Fred slapped his knee and he chuckled out loud. He laughed till he wheezed and his eyes filled with tears, all to the horror of Rosie Revere, who stood there embarrassed, perplexed, and dismayed. She looked at the cheese hat and then looked away. I love it, Fred hooted. Oh, I truly do. But Rosie Revere knew that could not be true. She stuck the cheese hat on the back of her shelf, and after that day, kept her dreams to herself. And that's how it went until one autumn day, her oldest relation showed up for a stay. Her great-great-aunt Rose was a true dynamo who'd worked building airplanes a long time ago. She told Rosie of the tale of things she had done and goals she had checked off her list one by one. She gave a sad smile as she looked to the sky. The only thrill left on my list is to fly. But time never lingers as long as it seems. I'll chalk that one up to an old lady's dreams. That night, as Rosie lay wide-eyed in bed, a daring idea crept into her head. Could she build a gizmo to help her aunt fly? She looked at the cheese hat and said, "No, not I." But questions are tricky, and some hold on tight. And this one kept Rosie awake through the night. So when dawn approached and red streaks lit the sky, young Rosie knew just how to make her aunt fly. She worked and she worked till the day was half gone, then hauled her cheese copter out onto the lawn. She gave her invention a test just to see the ridiculous flop that it might turn out to be. Strapped into the cockpit, she flipped on the switch. The Helio cheese copter sputtered and twitched. It floated a moment and whirled round and round, then froze for a heartbeat and crashed to the ground. Then Rosie heard laughter and turned round to see the old woman laughing and slapping her knee. She laughed till she wheezed and her eyes filled with tears, all to the horror of Rosie Revere, who thought, "Oh no, never, not ever again will I try to build something to sputter or spin, or build with a lever, a switch, or a gear, and I will never be a great engineer." She turned round to leave, but then Great-Great-Aunt Rose grabbed hold of young Rosie and pulled her in close, and hugged her and kissed her and started to cry. "You did it! Hooray! It's the perfect first try. This great flop is over. It's time for the next." Young Rosie was baffled, embarrassed, and perplexed. "I failed," said dear Rosie. "It's just made of trash. Don't you see it? The cheese copter crashed." "Yes," said her great aunt, "it crashed. That is true. But first, it did just what it needed to do. Before it crashed, Rosie, before that, it flew." "Your brilliant first flop was a raging success. Come on, let's get busy, get on to the next." She handed a notebook to Rosie Revere, who smiled at her aunt as it all became clear. Life might have its failures, but this was not it. The only true failure can come if you quit. They worked till the sun sneaked away to its bed. Aunt Rose tied her headscarf around Rosie's head and sent her to sleep with a smile ear to ear, to dream the bold dreams of a great engineer. At Blue River Creek, all the kids in grade 2 build gizmos and gadgets and doohickeys too. With each perfect failure, they all stand and cheer, but none quite as proudly as Rosie Revere. Thanks for joining us today on the International Space Station. We have a lot of engineers working for us, and someday I hope we have Rosie Revere working for us too.
Isn't that amazing? I would love to be the one that's on the International Space Station. But we're going to leave that up to you because I think I've missed my opportunity. But today we have two special guests with us today. Our first special guest is Diana Berry. Diana graduated as an industrial engineer in her native country, Colombia, South America. She then came to the U.S. and obtained her graduate degree as Master in Business Administration at the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill. Diana currently works for Harsco Rail in Columbia, South Carolina. Harsco Rail is a manufacturing company and international supplier for railway maintenance and construction. Diana works as a supply chain specialist in the logistics department. She led the Central Savannah River Society of Women Engineers local chapter for 2 consecutive years and is currently a member of SWE National Community Outreach Committee and scholarships judge. On her limited free time, Diana loves teaching Zumba fitness, playing violin, reading, and writing. Remember to feel free to put your questions in the Q&A chat box. We're going to bring up Diana. Good morning, Diana.
Good morning, and thank you for inviting me here today. I'm happy to share my engineering story with everybody. So let me tell you where my interest started. I was born and raised, as you say, in Colombia, South America, in a large city, and I always loved math in school. I also love music, so I started taking music lessons at the age of 4. My mother was a single mom, and her second job was to tutor high school girls and boys in math, and her math skills were very strong. So I remember my mom teaching at home and trying to instill the love for math in young students that the parents brought home for her to teach. Most of the kids she thought were failing in math, and she was there to help them to get better grades. I also grew around several engineers in the family. I have one uncle who is a civil engineer, another one is a chemical engineer, and my aunt is a computer science engineer. So I grew up around all of them, speaking about engineering and being comfortable finding out how things work. At the same time, I got good grades in math throughout school, and I knew I wanted to study a math-related field. All I knew at that point in my life is that it was engineering. So what type of engineering? I didn't know at that time because some type of engineering majors are not very clearly defined, or at least when I was growing up, I didn't have this kind of opportunities like this that you're having today to explore engineering and ask questions to real engineers. But I was lucky that I had my uncles and my aunt, and I could ask questions if I wanted. So when I finished high school, I had the big decision of either study engineering or music as a major. So my mom pushed me to select engineering, saying that I was always going to have my music to entertain myself, but I had to make a good living, and engineering will provide me that. So she convinced me, and I ended up going for engineering. With my aunt's help, I got to know industrial engineering because she had some friends who were already studying at that time. So when I learned that industrial engineering was the type of engineering more related with the human side, and I always loved to be around people, and I was very sociable. And I also learned that industrial engineers help to make jobs more efficient. So I like that. So I had the experience to study industrial engineering in a different country outside of the US, and I did my major in Spanish. In Colombia, when you study engineering, you do it for about 5 years. I think it's a little bit more than what you do here in the US. So then I came to the US to continue improving my education, and I studied my master's. The area of industrial engineering where I have been working on for the last 15 years is logistics. What is logistics? It's basically anything that you need to move products from one point to another. It can be within the United States, or it can be to move it from United States to another country. The company I currently work for is called Harsco Rail. And have you ever taken a train or have you seen a train running in the tracks? My company makes sure that the tracks are always well maintained for those trains to run. We produce big machines like the one that you see behind me. They're huge and they cost millions of dollars. So these machines take care of the rail, and we need it all around the world, wherever you have trains or subways to run, which is pretty much everywhere. In addition to producing these big machines that look like trains, we also make sure that the current trains have the parts they need to function properly and not get themselves in accidents. Because the trains run constantly, the parts they have get worn out and need to be replaced. So we sell those parts that need replacement to make the train work. This is where my role as an industrial engineer comes in. I make sure that these parts and machines are shipped to the destination countries on time and without damages. We ship these parts to Canada, Australia, Mexico, Colombia, my native country. And when you're shipping internationally, the documents and the regulations are very, very complicated. We also bring into the US a lot of materials that are necessary to produce these machines. For example, the steel. The steel is necessary to make all the parts that go into this big machine. So I help to move these parts and have those in time for the people that are working in the plant to produce them. And I help to move the parts. I enjoy what I do because I constantly learn. Depending on the country where these parts are going, there are different requirements, there are different regulations to consider, so I have to learn every day. I also have to communicate with different parts and departments of the company, like sales, production, purchasing. So I get to work with a lot of mechanical engineers. They are the designers of the parts that go into these huge machines. So although I'm not a mechanical engineer, I have learned a lot working closely with them. In my company, there are not many women engineers, but the ones that are here are very passionate about what they do and they really enjoy it. Although I'm not in the plant working building the machines, I do need to know how those parts are made, and I need to understand the parts that go into the machine because I code the parts for the US government before they're shipped to other countries. So it's an interesting job that involves curiosity, analysis, lots of reading, lots of learning, questioning other engineers every day, and communicating with different parts of the company. So that's my engineering story.
Thank you. There are a couple of questions. One of them says, do you get to ride on the trains?
If I want to, yeah. We have a little area here outside of the plant where we test the trains, and I haven't done it, but I could if I wanted to.
And another one.
That'd be fun.
Is your current job more engineering or business related?
I think it's a combination of both, is I would say. And that's one thing that you find in engineering. A lot of times the areas overlap and you end up having to know a lot about the business, but also about engineering.
All right. Well, thank you, Diana.
You're welcome.
We appreciate your time. Our next guest engineer is Arizona Morgan Harris. Arizona attended the University of Mississippi and graduated with a degree in chemical engineering in 2019. She moved from Mississippi to South Carolina and started at Savannah River Nuclear Solutions soon after that. On site, she works as a chemical engineer. She's a member of the National Society of Black Engineers, Women in Nuclear, and Society of Women Engineers, where she serves as secretary. In her free time, she likes to read, sew, crochet, spend time with friends and family, and watch her favorite show, Phineas and Ferb. Remember, feel free to use the Q&A chat board to ask questions of our special guest engineers. Good morning, Arizona.
Good morning. Hello. I'm super glad to be here and share my experience with y'all as an engineer. So, I'm from Mississippi, grew up in a very, very small town in Mississippi. So small, we didn't even have like stoplights. It was just a straight highway. That was it. So in school, we never really talked much about careers. I didn't know a whole lot about engineering at all. Like, not even a thing on my mind. I didn't even really know much about engineering. I love science though. It was a passion of mine. I love biology, chemistry, all of it. I love those things. So I always knew I wanted to do something with science. I never thought about engineering either because me and math are not good friends. It's not the most enjoyable subject for me, but you know, I can buckle down and get it done. So when I was younger, I wanted to be a doctor, and then I realized I didn't really like blood that much, so that was out. And then I was gonna be a biologist because I loved science. I thought biology, perfect job. And I talked to couple of my family members. They both graduated from the University of Mississippi as engineers. So I talked to them, and they said, "So what are you gonna do with this degree in biology?" And I said, you know, that is a good question. I have no idea. I just know I like science and I want to do something related. So they're like, "Why? You should try to do chemical engineering." So, you know, and take some biology classes and trying to figure out what you want to do. And I said, you know, sure, why not? I'll give it a try. So I started 2015 at the University of Mississippi. Chemical engineering, and I got there and absolutely loved it. I was not expecting to because it looked difficult because there's a lot of math classes, and I was like, I don't know about that. But it was so much fun. I met some of the best people. It really challenged me, and I learned so much. It gave me a lot of opportunities to do things. I got super involved. I was an RA in college, so on top of doing all my stuff for chemical engineering, I was able to also help my passion of helping people by being an RA. So I was always with my residents, helping them out, helping them study, giving them advice, just being with them. I was a member of SWE and NSBE also when I was in college. So kept that going once I graduated. So I'm in them now. I was a member of the Honors College. It was a big reason why I went to the University of Mississippi was the Honors College. So with that, I was able to write a thesis on my senior project, and other people did, you know, their thesis on senior projects. Some of them did it on research. So it was a thing you were able to pretty much do what you were interested in, and that was great. I loved that. I love being a chemical engineer because you can do so many things with this degree. I work in the nuclear field. That's not, you know, that's not the first thing you think of when you think of chemical engineering, but you can do it. I have friends that work at Exxon, so you can do oil and gas. I have a friend that works for a food company. So it is just, you can do so many things as a chemical engineer, and I really appreciate that. That's one thing that I love about it. So now I'm on site. I've been working at SRS for about a year and a half. And it's great. I get to learn so many new things. Again, being in a field that's not necessarily known for chemical engineering, I get to learn something new every day. And I get to work with a ton of people. My group, we are currently in the process of building a whole new process here on site that was in other places in the Department of Energy complex. So now we're bringing all their information and putting it here in South Carolina. So it's a whole lot of working with lots of different customers and lots of different groups, trying to get all that knowledge and bring it to one place. So I get to work with people all the time, whether it's my coworkers or I'm talking to someone that lives in New Mexico, or they are in California. It's just everywhere. So I really enjoy that I'm able to talk to so many people and get to know many people while also working as an engineer. So I get to get both of those sides of things that I enjoy, being an engineer and being around people. So yeah, I've enjoyed it. Even though I wasn't originally going to be an engineer, that was not even on my mind, I ended up here and I enjoy every moment of it. So, you know, might not be something that particularly piques your interest right now, but you never know unless you try.
All right, thank you. A couple of comments and questions. One comment said, I always thought you had to be a great in math to be an engineer.
Not necessarily. Me personally, I don't use a ton of math. That's what Excel is for. That is my best friend. So I put all the math in there and let the program figure it out. You just have to know the basics. Learning math helps your brain get going, which is you need for engineering. So that's the most important thing. It's just being able to wrap your mind around these wild concepts and just being able to apply it. It's not necessarily being good. It's just being able to, you know, open your mind to something different.
And the other comment says, what do you do exactly as a chemical engineer?
So right now, since we're in the process of designing this facility, my job is to learn everything I can about the particular systems that I'm in charge of. There's two. It's one that deals with chemistry and one that deals with materials. So I just learned everything that I can about those things, and I condense it all into one document that will be used to design the facility. Once it gets up and running, it'll be used to, you know, purchase equipment and all that good stuff. It will be used to run tests to make sure all of our stuff is working. They'll use it to make sure that we're up to code and we're following all the regulations that we need to make sure that, you know, our process is safe, because that's very important working in nuclear. You can't just have things flying out all willy-nilly. You have to keep it nice and contained. So that's what I do now.
All right. Well, thank you so much, both of you, for your time. Thanks for all the great questions out there. Just a reminder, if you have not already, go visit usca.edu/SEED to look at all of the SEED Virtual STEM Expo resources that are out there. This afternoon, join us for our second installment of the STEM Explorer series. This afternoon, we will have a presentation by the American Chemical Society Kids Zone. So lots of great chemical experiments that you can watch and do at your house. And then tomorrow at 10 o'clock, you can join us for our final story time. And tomorrow's story time will be the book Ada Twist Scientist, and we'll be joined by a scientist from the Greenwood Genetics Center. So again, thanks everybody for joining us. You have a great day.